Good Monday morning, everybody. Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to the Cruise News. All right, I got several cruise news stories for you today. We got some possible delays on disembarkation in Vancouver for upcoming cruises. We have delays for MSC's new luxury cruise ship, the Explorer 1. We have updates for the Ruby Princess and what's going on with her in San Francisco after hitting the dock. And we have a cruise ship fire on board Marella. So let's get into the cruise news. First up, we're going to talk about some disembarkation delays coming up, or possibly coming up in Vancouver for cruises that are disembarking there. Now, we talked about it in a previous video that the longshoremen have gone on strike there in British Columbia, and it wasn't expected to affect cruises very much, but it does look like it has a possibility of a little bit of a delay. Now, Royal Caribbean has begun informing some of their guests that the onshore luggage operations, well, they're going to be delayed by 1 hour. And if you're wondering what onshore luggage operations, those are the ones, that you see them pull up to the side of the ship on disembarkation day. They take your luggage off of the ship and they take it into the cruise terminal. And with them starting an hour later each day, that can affect how quickly your luggage is going to be available in the terminal if you have it taken off of the ship. Now, if you get off the ship self-assist, you take your own luggage off of the ship, you won't notice any change or any difference. But if you put your luggage out the night before and have the cruise ship take it off in the morning and then you pick it up in the terminal, that is where you may see a delay. And if you book your flights early and you have them take your luggage off, well, you're probably going to want to reconsider booking an earlier flight, possibly book a later flight. Now, it's always been a cruise tip never to book a real early flight because you never know what can happen. Cruise ship delays, inspection delays, something that prevents you from getting off the ship early. So hopefully this wouldn't be, a pretty common problem anyway, but it is something to be aware of just in case you do, book a fairly early flight, try to get off the ship early, and then hope that your luggage is available in the terminal because it is going to be delayed. Now, this is not going to be only affecting Royal Caribbean. Norwegian goes there. Holland America has ships going there. Norwegian, Disney. So several of the cruise lines disembark in Vancouver, and it's probably going to affect all of them. So the solution to this, really simple, is do the self-assist. If you do that, you take your own luggage off of the ship, then you don't have anything to worry about. They won't have anything to do with your luggage. But the one thing to remember is if you require wheelchair assistance or any type of assistance getting off the cruise ship, you can't do self-assist with your luggage. So just kind of keep that in mind, and just in case anybody happens to fall into that category, and just watch how early you book your flights. No other delays are expected, but this one was kind of a little bit unexpected, and we don't know how long the strike is going to last. There is always the possibility it could affect other operations, but this is at least it for now. Next, we have MSC's new luxury cruise ship. It's part of their new luxury cruise line. It's going to be the Explorer 1. She was originally scheduled to be delivered this past Thursday. There was a delay. They called it a supply chain issue, and they pushed back delivery. Well, come to find out, it's a little more of a safety issue and a safety concern than it is a supply chain issue. And what it turned out to be is some faulty fire-resistant panels that are used in construction on board the ship. Well, they failed an inspection, and that is actually what has caused the delay. Now, the company that makes and manufactures these fire-resistant panels, they lost their safety certification. It happened this past May. They notified the shipyard of the issue, and they've also identified 45 other cruise ships that have these panels on board and are actually currently sailing. How it's going to affect, cruise ships currently under construction if they're using these panels, they haven't said yet. Most likely, they will go and attempt to recertify these panels to get them back into, code, into tolerance, get them past the inspection. But no one's really said yet exactly what's going to happen. But I also want to point out, this doesn't mean that the cruise ships that are out there sailing are unsafe. Doesn't mean they're suddenly going to pull a bunch of cruise ships, from sailing. They're going to start canceling anything. Nothing like that. When a lot of this stuff was installed, it was certified, it passed, it was good to go. They just identified ships that these panels are on. So I don't want to start any, misconceptions. I don't want to start any panic. I don't want to start any worry. Nothing like that. This is just purely for information at this time. If something changes, new information comes out, if it actually gets to the point where it affects anything, we'll let you guys know. But as of today, this is just information, nothing to worry about. Ruby Princess. Poor Ruby Princess, she's had a rough couple of days. You know, it's been all over the news, been in news stories. We did a story on it just this past Friday. You know, the Ruby Princess came into San Francisco on Thursday while maneuvering to the dock. She slipped, she struck the dock. There was damage to both the Ruby Princess and to the dock as well. Now, since then, they fixed the ship. They've patched it up, they've covered up the hole, seen some pictures on it. You know, they've done what they had to do, but it's taken a couple of days for the Coast Guard to come on and approve them to sail. So since Thursday, they went ahead and embarked the passengers on, just like they normally would, but the ship's been sitting in San Francisco. Passengers are on board. I mean, they're getting to enjoy the ship. Everything's open, everything's going, of course, minus shops and casinos, which can't be open while in port. They did eventually allow the passengers to get off the ship and enjoy San Francisco, kind of like it was a port stop. And early Sunday morning, the Coast Guard cleared them. They're good to go and sailed yesterday at 4 o'clock. So the Ruby Princess is finally gone from San Francisco. Now, with them leaving yesterday, obviously the itinerary has completely changed. It's gone from a 10-day cruise. It is now down to a 7-day cruise with only 2 port stops. So the only places they're going to go is Ketchikan, and then they're going to stop at Prince Rupert. So that's it, and then back to San Francisco. So a lot of the stops are gone. It's definitely not the cruise that people booked. It's not the cruise that people wanted to take. But I think Princess has really stepped up and offered a really good compensation package for those that stayed on the ship and for those that chose to get off the ship. So if you stayed on the ship, Princess offered a 75% refund of the cruise fare you paid, plus 75% future cruise credit. That's for staying on the ship. Now, if you chose to get off the ship, and these folks had all the way until 11 a.m. on Sunday to decide whether or not they were going to get off the ship or not, they got a 100% refund of the cruise fare they paid, plus a 50% future cruise credit. So whether you stayed on or whether you chose to get off, and I heard most people have chose to stay on, Princess really is taking care of their passengers. Now, me personally, I'd have stayed on that ship to get 75% of my cruise fare back, still get some Alaska, because at the end of the day, it's still a 7-day cruise, so I'm still going to get some Alaska. I get 75% of my money back and 75% future cruise credit. Yeah, I'd have jumped on that deal all day long. Now, I know that may not be for everybody, and not everybody may agree with that. But for me, you know, I would have been flying from Texas to San Francisco. I would have had travel plans to get from San Francisco back to Texas. So it would have made no sense for me to get off the ship early and have to rearrange my travel when I could have just stayed on board the ship, enjoyed San Francisco for a couple extra days, get a couple extra tours, a little extra sightseeing, still get some Alaska, and then get a good portion of my money back and 75% future cruise credit. Yeah, I'd have definitely jumped on that deal. I mean, how about you guys? Would you have stayed on the ship or would you have gotten off the ship? And while I definitely don't speak for everybody, I suppose unless you drove there and could, you know, get off the ship and hop in your car and you were just a couple hours away, I don't know how many people it would have made sense for or chose to actually get off the ship. But I'm curious to know what you guys think. Which one of those choices would y'all have taken? And finally, a fire on board the Marella Discovery while she was sailing in the Caribbean. Well, that has resulted in 2 cruises being canceled. This past Friday morning, a fire broke out in the engine room on board the Marella Discovery. Now, this fire was very quickly extinguished, put out, no injuries to crew, no injuries to passengers. But because of the fire, they went ahead and they turned around and they went back to Amber Cove, docked in Amber Cove in order to have the ship inspected. Once they arrived back in Amber Cove, the passengers were informed that they were going to have to cancel the remainder of the cruise, and they also canceled the follow-on cruise that sailed yesterday, or was supposed to sail yesterday, on July the 9th. Okay, so the remainder of the cruise and the next cruise, those were the 2 that were canceled. We've returned to Amber Cove so engineers can assess any damage and so that we can complete essential third-party inspections to clear us to sail. Unfortunately, we are currently waiting for class-approved surveyors who are flying to the Dominican Republic to reinstate and certify the fixed firefighting system that we used to extinguish the fire. By the time this is complete and we are clear to sail, we would not be able to reach Port Canaveral on Sunday as planned. With that in mind, we have made the difficult decision to cancel this cruise and fly you home. Start that again. It is not a decision we've come to lightly, but it is clear we simply cannot offer you a suitable itinerary. This is a big logistical operation, and we appreciate your patience as we make all the necessary arrangements. So when the fire broke out, they used the onboard fire suppression system. Now that it's been used, it now has to be recertified before the ship can sail again with passengers. And that's just not something they can have done while it's in Amber Cove. They got to bring the people in, they got to fly them in to have it recertified, which means cruise cancellation. And yeah, it's going to be a big operation. They got to get everybody off the ship, get them on airplanes, and get them all headed home. And that is a big logistical issue, and it can definitely turn into a logistical nightmare. So, cruise lines don't do that unless they absolutely have to, but it's a safety and a certification requirement of why Marella has to do this. And since they've also canceled the follow-on cruise, it leads me to believe it may take a couple days to get those folks there and get this done. And Marella's also said that they will be refunding pro-rated amounts to cruise passengers on board the ship for the remainder of the cruise that they're missing. And in this situation, all I can say is, if you're a passenger on the Marella Discovery, please try to have a little bit of patience, because you're already disappointed, I'm sure, that your cruise has now been cut. You don't get to finish your cruise. And getting flights and everybody to the airport and get everybody heading home, probably not going to be, a snap, quick process. It's going to take a little bit. So definitely recommend patience. It's going to be the best way to get through it. That way everybody gets back home and safe and sound. And that's going to be our cruise news for today. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you have, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there is having a really great day. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.